Hello and welcome to the Live Series podcast, where I bring to you some of the best technology leaders across Europe who are prepared to give up their time to share their expertise, stories and ideas in a way to bring the tech community together and inspire the next generation of software development professionals. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Juha Ristolainen, who is the new CTO at Upvest in Berlin and a previous CTO at Transferwise. Now, Upvest are a Berlin-based FinTech that enables platforms to offer digital securities to investors. Juha has a wealth of experience spanning 20 years in technology, starting out as a software engineer back in Helsinki and then progressing his career through to a CTO. So Juha, welcome. It's great to have an opportunity to speak to you. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. And it's great to be here. Nice to be invited.
Good. Well, obviously, I've got a lot of questions for you, Juha. We've only got, usually these things only last for around about 20-25 minutes, and we've got a huge amount of content to get through over the last 20 years. I don't know if I'll be able to cover everything, but we'll give it a go. So typically, I tend to start the podcast by just introducing yourself, and if you could just tell the listeners a little bit about you, how you got into software development, and how you've kind of progressed your career from there.
Yeah, all right. So as you mentioned, I'm from Finland originally, and I was born in the 70s. So early 80s, when computing started to come into the home, I was one of the lucky ones who had a chance to get a personal computer at home. Like I think it was Commodore VIC-20 or Commodore 64 at that time. I think it was 1986. It was quite exciting, and back at that time, you booted up the computer and it opened up into a basic interpreter, basically. So you had to start writing stuff into it to get something done, even to load a game. But pretty soon you started reading the manuals and writing small basic apps, basically. First from the book, just to see what happens, but pretty soon when you started tweaking, like what if I change that number, and what if I add a new line with some different values in it, what happens then? And you saw things change in the screen, which was like super exciting for a 8-9-year-old child. So that was pretty much when I was hooked that this is the future, and I'm going to make my career around this. So basically, I've been quite lucky that I've always known what I want to do for a living ever since that.
That's amazing.
But yeah, then I ended up going to school and university around the same topics, and ended up getting my first jobs in the industry as a developer. So
fantastic.
That's the beginning.
Perfect. So how did you progress from there? So you started out as an engineer, and you were in Helsinki, but you've worked all in a variety of locations across Europe, haven't you, throughout your career? Yeah.
So in the beginning, I actually had a few jobs in Tampere, a smaller city in Finland, with one of the big operators, mobile operators, just doing reporting software with Perl or something like that on one of the first IPTV pilots that they were doing. But after a few years, I went to Helsinki and applied for this mobile developer role. Back then, it wasn't iPhones or Android; it was still Nokia times, so it was Symbian and C++, hardcore stuff, which I had learned in the uni, C and C++ mainly. So I got the job and moved to Helsinki to work for this agency that I ended up staying with for 10 years and grew with the company. I think that was actually quite lucky because we were 4 founders, and then I think I was the 6th employee when I joined. So 10 guys in a small office in downtown Helsinki, writing mobile stuff for Nokia and building a small product of their own at the time as well. And then having the chance to really grow into different areas and domains over those 10 years and basically grow with the company. I think in the end, when I left, we had offices in 4 countries and like 500 people all over Europe. So I think that was really lucky for me as well, to be able to have my hand in so many different things and domains and mobile backend, a bit of front end, project management. So it was sort of like a even better for my career as a school or learning than uni was preparing me for all the learning.
Yeah.
And basically the IT careers are basically continuous learning, so you can't stand still in this industry.
Yeah, no, exactly. Did you kind of fall into a leadership role within that particular position, or did you?
Yeah, I think it's quite natural especially in those days, because everything was booming and everything was going great. We were growing and there were more customers than we can handle. So basically a lot of the people who had sort of grown and been around and developed stuff ended up sort of having to take leadership roles in their own projects. And obviously over time, when more people joined and you were part of hiring people, as I was part of setting up a few offices, like the Tampere one was basically I was the first employee there, and also part of setting up the Berlin and London offices. You hire a lot of people, and obviously you've been around, you know more about how the company works internally. You sort of fall into this leadership role sort of by accident. But I never really had any problem with that, because I have a lot of opinions, and obviously with experience, a lot of knowledge on how to try to do things the best way, I think. So it's sort of a natural progression. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have a mentor or anybody that you were working alongside? Because obviously at that point, you progressed through from a developer into a more of a senior role, but then you started talking about opening up other offices across Europe. That's quite a big step, isn't it? So I suppose where's that come from? I suppose from yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at that time when we were still in Finland and growing, I used to do a lot of networking, and I used to go around and talking to more senior people and get their opinions and sort of, hey, how did you guys solve that, and what do you think about that, and just networking in general, where you get to meet a lot of people, and I think I've had a lot of help from that over the years. But obviously, like in the early days of my career at the agency, there were sort of people who had founded the company, for example, and had a bit more experience than myself. They were also supportive and things like that. And actually, the person that was in the team, sort of the senior engineer, when I joined for the first time in 2004, I think, at the company, they were younger than me, but they'd never gone to any school, so they self-taught everything. But they were like a super hardcore hacker and a developer, and they taught me really quite a lot, which is I'm grateful for.
Perfect. So you're not one of these people that believes the myth that you have to go down the education route as a developer. You could potentially self-taught yourself, and you could equally be as good a developer self-taught as you could be going from university.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you can be a good developer without like a formal education, but obviously there are benefits to a formal education. Like you get a breadth of knowledge and much more context around why things work this way, because you know all the nuts and bolts underneath as well, and have algorithmic thinking and security and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you can still be productive in just by self-learning and coming through boot camps. And whenever I'm hiring as well, it's not really important if you have a degree or not. It's about the mindset and your ability to solve problems, basically. So those are the main things.
Yeah. So it's I suppose understanding the product as well as just being a coder. Yeah,
and especially now later on in my career, the concept of an engineer sort of evolved. Like I spent some time at Transferwise just before I joined Upvest, where I mean, even at Upvest, our engineers are product minded. So what's the problem we are solving, and why do we do this? We're not just building a product for the fun of it. We're building a product to solve a problem.
Yeah.
So all the engineers need to have a bit of this thinking about from the user's point of view. So you can't. I think that is one of the most important things nowadays. You have to have that mindset rather than just be a hardcore. Give me a spec, I'll implement it. Those are the days of the past.
Yeah. Ultimately, what problem are you solving with the product that you're actually creating? Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so you touched upon your time there at Transferwise. Let's kind of dive into that a little bit. Do you move from that role in Helsinki over to Transferwise? Is that how that kind of happened?
No, actually, I was in Berlin at that time. I'd been running a corporate innovation with Daimler, so working on blockchain stuff already there.
Right.
But then Transferwise had an opportunity to join them as one of the sort of director level roles. I wasn't the CTO for Transferwise. I was CTO for a product line called Transferwise for Business. So basically, responsible for the because Transferwise is becoming a platform and it was wanting to go that way. That it's not just a website or a mobile apps anymore. That's the product. It's the actual platform and exposing that via APIs and integrating it where companies and people actually use the money. So moving to a platform play. So that was part of my department. So we had I think 8-9 teams in the business tribe, about 80 people, half of them engineers, and we were delivering on all the business customer segment features.
Okay. How big was the department when you first joined? Because I think during your time you had quite significant growth, didn't you, during that time?
Yeah, and we had a few teams, and the whole business side was quite fresh at Transferwise. It was originally a consumer-focused product, and the business side had sort of organically grown over the last 2-3 years. So we had a few teams there, but most of them were missing technical leads and things like that. So part of my 2 years there was really organizing this and hiring aggressively. So engineering side, we probably doubled over the last 2 years. But so did the whole Transferwise. I think we doubled engineering from 200 to 450 over the time I was there. Yeah.
What was the, I suppose, what's the biggest challenge with, with scaling a team that quickly, I suppose, because a lot of businesses, particularly in your bigger cities like London and Berlin, etc., they really find it hard to attract and retain the best people. So although you may be hiring quite a lot of people, there's always that kind of attrition of people who are dropping out at the same time. How did you go from maybe 200 to 450 in such a short pace of time?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a few things to it. Transferwise, they had built and were building an awesome internal recruitment team with global presence. So then we had like a dedicated recruiter working on like roles and really driving that. I don't think it would have been possible otherwise. But then again, Transferwise was starting to have enough publicity that people know the company globally already. We were one of the unicorn club already, but also profitable, which is quite rare in the other FinTech unicorns in London and Europe. So in that sense, we had a lot of traction, like people wanted to apply to work for us. Then on the other hand, we wanted to keep the bar high. So sometimes the number of people who went through the whole process was quite low. So we had to basically keep up the standards. So as not to let the product suffer and the engineering work. So it's a fine balance. But again, like Transferwise and even now at Upvest, we want to build longer term relationships with people so that they're willing to give us, like, let's say 3-4 years instead of the industry average 2 years. So taking a note from the Silicon Valley playbook is that, okay, everybody gets part of the success. So having an options program for developers, for example, when they join, helps us engage them for a longer period. Like you have a 4-year vesting period, you stay with us for 4 years, and then let's see what happens after that.
Yeah.
So those kind of things.
That's interesting.
I think we need to push those more in Europe. Take a note from our brothers in the US.
Cool. How did you have a particular vision as to where you wanted to go as a business, and how important was I suppose everybody within your teams understanding that vision to help you kind of get to where you wanted to be over that time?
Yeah, Transferwise is really quite a low hierarchy organization and mission driven. So everybody always knew what the mission is, like make money borderless. So basically as fast as possible, as cheap as possible, as convenient to use as possible. So if you didn't have any other guidance, those were the rules that you fell back to. Like you always knew what to do. If I can make it easier for my customer, then that's what I will do. Sometimes we did that for the benefit of the customer over the benefit of the company. So it's always like really customer driven. Like everybody was there to build the best product possible. So
right.
That's really quite unique, and the atmosphere was quite good. As much always heard about some of the fintechs in London, for example. I think that's quite important, and what I've been using ever since, and even before that, is that everybody, what's the purpose of the company, what's the mission we want to achieve, rally everybody behind that, and then you can derive your strategy and your more tactical pieces around that. But what's behind everything? So that's what we want to do. It helps everybody align, basically.
Fantastic. What would you say? When you're hiring for developers, and I have a similar question to all the kind of engineering leaders that I speak to when I'm doing pieces of recruitment for them. But what emphasis are you putting on technical skills in comparison to personality skills? Because I'm seeing that there is a little bit of a shift in terms of what people are looking for, because you can teach technical skills, but you can't change somebody's kind of personality, their drive, technical interest outside of work. Are those the type of things that you look for when you're hiring?
Yeah, I mean, it's an art to itself. Like how do you build a well-functioning team? You need different types of people in there. Like not everybody can be super extrovert, but also not introverted. So you build around different people that basically complement each other. So you have more outgoing people who can manage and talk to stakeholders, especially like at Transferwise, where everything was built around this autonomous teams. So I didn't tell my teams what they need to work on. They did their research themselves from the customers and the market and all that kind of stuff. And my boss, Hars, who was the whole CTO of Transferwise, he didn't tell me what we need to work on. So we did our teams did their own research and decided their roadmap themselves. So the leadership was much more coaching style. So in that environment, maybe sometimes the more extroverted people sort of rose to the leadership roles a bit faster than the others. So that may be the downside of that model. But yeah, there's room for all kinds of people. So you just have to find a good balance in a team. You don't want to hire rock stars who just want to do everything themselves and not be a part of a team so that's a skill I've been sort of honing for the last 10 years that I've been hiring. Is how do you build a highly functioning team with different types of personalities.
Perfect. So you the last kind of 2.5 years you were at Transferwise, and you've recently joined Upvest, who I know are a very well-respected up-and-coming fintech in Berlin. And you've joined there, obviously, at one of the worst times in history, in the middle of a pandemic, I suppose. Are you completely remote there at the moment, or are you in the office? And how have you found that transition to moving into a new business in this period?
Yeah, I mean, I do admit that when we were moving in June, Heathrow was quite empty when we were flying, and we had to actually produce documents on the reasons why we were flying. So apparently having a job and a flat in another country was reason enough for flying. But I mean, we had a period of fully remote here as well before I joined, but now we are sort of quite flexible. We have a new office space here in the Silicon Valley, central Berlin area. People are free to come to the office, and we do come to the office whenever we do like whiteboarding and stuff like that. But for example, now I've been working from home today, and a lot of the engineers work from home most of the days. So I think it's going to change a bit, like in the future, more and more remote. I think the main thing for us, especially, we're really in a we have a product out there. We raised our A series last December, and now we're building our sort of second generation stuff. We need to move fast, and we need to have as little obstacles to communication as we need. So that's why remote people need to be in the adjacent time zones. We do have some people who are in the North America time zone, but we can still manage that. But yeah, it's going to be like a mix of office and home office going forward.
Yeah, no, I recently actually put out a poll today to my network on LinkedIn about remote working and about I suppose the future of tech. Where do you kind of see technology kind of moving to? Do you see it remote? Do you see it kind of completely in the office, or do you see it as a mixture of both, really?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's going to be a mixture. Like there's always times when you need to come together and as things also, especially like we're doing a lot of architecture and sort of high level planning now, where we need to I like to whiteboard a lot with my engineers, for example. I even bought a Wacom tablet with a pen stylus at home to try to do online whiteboarding, but I'm still crap at that. So I still like to go back to the office for that kind of stuff. And obviously we're observing all these safety rules and with masks and stuff like that. But I think it's going to be a mix. Some companies will go full remote who are sort of equipped to do that already. But like I said, we're in a stage where we could theoretically do it, but there's so many benefits still for us to come together at certain points.
I think having a mixture is definitely the right way forward. You know, the reason why I put that poll up today was because over the last kind of couple of weeks, I've been speaking to people who have been saying that they're moving because their company has moved completely remote and they do want to have that office environment feel, maybe not all the time, but just as a little bit of a flexibility. And on the flip side, there's people who don't want to be in the office at all and they're looking to leave because their business is just completely in the office. So having that balance, I think, is really important.
Yeah, and a topic that touches on this is I've seen on LinkedIn some discussions around like obviously salaries come into play, like even at Transferwise, like different locations have different salary bands. So if you're based in London, getting London salaries, and then you move to Estonia, probably can't expect the same London salary anymore. So that's another point to this, whereas some companies just pay Silicon Valley salaries to everybody globally when they're remote, but that's not feasible for most of the companies. So
no, exactly. What's the biggest challenge that you've kind of faced since you've moved to Upvest?
Well, I mean, we had a bit of a shift inside. So half of the leadership team is now new. So we on the same day as I joined, we had a new VP growth start, and a month earlier we had a new head of people join. So we had to really get to know each other first as a leadership team. So we did some workshopping and offsites around that as well, and then sort of formulating together like basically good chance for the existing leadership team to also like articulate like what's the purpose of the company, what's the mission. So we worked through all of that together, and now we sort of have a strategy, go-to-market strategy for over the next time periods, and then from that onwards, getting to know the product as usual, and now really formulating this product roadmap and trying to get enough people to be able to deliver that. So we're still hiring like no tomorrow, basically. So we're a small company, still about 25 people. Engineering is 10, but probably we'll be getting 5 to 10 more engineers this year or next year.
What's your tech stack? What you coding in? What you typically looking for? Yeah,
so now we're B2B API business, so we don't have any front end or UI stuff. So we're betting heavily on Golang. So it's a really productive, a natural fit for cloud native backend stuff. So we're having Golang backend guys, and obviously cloud native. So software on the Google Cloud, but it's Docker and Kubernetes, so any thing like that.
Perfect. Just finally, Juha, because I'm conscious of time and I don't want to take up your whole day. If there was one piece of advice that you could give to anyone looking to kind of make a transition into tech leadership, what advice would you give them?
Well, I mean, coming from the Nordics, I always my values are based on trust and transparency. So to me, that's the first thing. So always be open about, like, okay, it's okay to say I don't know. I don't know yet, but I can find out. But basically nowadays leadership is more about empowering your team. So think about what do you want to convey to your, like, what's the message, the direction we're going for, and these are the sort of restrictions we have to abide by. Like, for example, now we're a BaFin licensed financial institute, so obviously we have regulatory stuff and all that kind of stuff, but basically show the direction and give them all the support that they need. You hire smart people, engineers, to deliver stuff, so they don't need to be told by hand what to do. So you give them direction and enable them and unblock them and let them go.
Fantastic. All right, Juha. Well, I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you have too. And if everybody who's listening, hopefully you've all enjoyed it as well. If you have, can you please like, comment, and share it with your friends and colleagues? And I'll see you again on the next episode. Thanks very much.
All right, thank you.